34 transport lines. Lin Huaisheng walked outside the large conference room and looked inside from the door. There were not many people inside, which made him feel a little relaxed. He adjusted his clothes and hat and walked into the stepped conference room, and the total of about 40 people who came to listen to him explain the landforms of mountains and rivers in southern Tibet quieted down. He knows that there are many people in China who care about this area, but there are not as many officers and generals who study this area all the year round as there are in this room. Most of these audience members are school-level officers, and he knows many of them. Yes, he noticed that in the front row, there was an officer guarding a black phone, and he knew that there might be some big people on the other end of the phone, and of course it might just be some nonsense made up by the old man. He sat down to check the pictures and lecture notes on the computer, and more than 20 staff officers who were smoking in the aisle outside came in one after another, so that the venue, which could seat 500 people, seemed to have a somewhat discussion atmosphere. He pretended to cough, indicating that he was about to speak, and while he opened the picture on the computer, someone turned off several nearby lights. The first picture was immediately displayed on the screen behind him. It was a rugged mountain. It could be seen that there were no trees on the entire hillside. The silt under the hillside was wrapped in broken fir trees and blocked a stream. Comrades, this is the typical landform of that area. It was taken by me in November last year. The picture is located near the line of actual control south of Ganodermalucidum. There was no response below. No one nodded or shook his head. There were a few people in the front row trying their best to record without raising their heads, which made Lin Huaisheng very puzzled because he only said one sentence. The instability of addresses in this area has led to the ineffectiveness of map measurements, which is a difficult task for scouts, he continued. He finally got his wish, and saw a few shaking their heads below. Perhaps not satisfied with his demeaning role as a scout. Everyone knows the temperature and rainfall as well as I do. The suitable time for infantry to attack is from the end of September to November each year. However, logistics will be a serious problem. Can you talk about the logistics system of the Indian Army first? We all know the situation in front of Shannon. Someone spoke below. Lin Huaisheng didn't expect to hit the south wall as soon as he came up. He glanced at the other party and found that it was the colonel who was debating with the experts at the meeting a few days ago. It seems that this guy has a tradition of fighting with the speaker. Okay. Lin Huaisheng switched from picture 1 to picture 20. Although his ordering was disrupted, he was well prepared and everything was easy. Picture 20 is an overlooked satellite map with a resolution of about 1 meter, and people and barracks can be clearly seen. The main display above is a highway. From the construction specifications, it seems to be lower than the domestic provincial highway standard. This is the road from Siguri. The section in the photo is south of Bagdogra. Since the Nehru era, India has spent 40 years building this strategic road. The total length is close to the Sichuan-Tibet line. The segment is not fully completed. This road connects Bihar and Assam. Most of the road is far from the line of actual control, but in the Siguri corridor area, very close to the Nathula Pass. Roughly in the rocket launcher within range. Does all their logistics go through this road? Another question, it seems that Indian Army logistics is their concern. Most of the land traffic has to rely on this road, and of course there are railways in India, I will talk about it later. This road bears most of the provisions of the three armies in the whole region, but the most important one in central Assam, the airport of the base Horhat, can take off Antonov transport aircraft, their 43rd Goat Squadron and 49th Shuttle Squadron, take off from this base, and travel to and from Bihar. This route basically overlaps with the road on the ground. Our radar, the takeoff and landing of aircraft, can be monitored. What type of aircraft are they? These two transport aircraft squadrons are still using An-32s. Lin Huaisheng's words triggered the following strange reactions. He saw a few heartfelt smiles on the faces of several people. It seemed that these staff officers felt that the opponent's equipment was a little weak. However, these troops are likely to change to C-130 recently, and the airport southwest of Horhat is under construction, and may take off and land C-17 in the future. The slightly relaxed face below disappeared, and some people began to whisper. Most of them were expressionless, those few buried their heads in taking notes, but still did not raise their heads. As for the rest of the transport force, the Indian Air Force also has helicopters from the 20th Wing in Bagdogra, part of the 19th Wing in Guwahati, and the 115th from the 11th Wing in Stipur. Helicopter Squadron, Jalhad's 129th Helicopter Squadron. Lin Huaisheng quickly switched photos of different airports as he spoke. In the photos, a large number of Mi-17 or Indian Leopard helicopters could be seen on the ground. In a deeper area, there is the 22nd Helicopter Wing at Kunchigolam, which has 2 helicopter squadrons dedicated to the logistics of the 57th Infantry Division in the Imphal area. It is pointed out that these helicopter units are mainly equipped with models with good plateau performance, such as the Indian-made Polaris helicopter. In addition, from a geographical point of view, India occupies a lower altitude advantage, compared to the helicopter units on our side. Said that they do not need to pass through dangerous areas like the Daksanla Pass, so they can supply vertical supplies to most of the frontier areas almost all year round. After Lin Huaisheng finished speaking, the atmosphere below was a little dignified, especially for those first. An officer who surveyed the southern direction of Tibet said that the Indian Air Force has a lot of transport units and equipment in this area, which left a deep impression on them. Also, as I mentioned earlier, India still has a railway into the Assam region. The railway is of very low standard, it is destroyed by floods or other natural disasters at least 1 month a year. The speed per hour is very low, the capacity is quite low. The previous surveys of the General Staff also believed that the railway could not have a great role in the wartime destruction. The atmosphere became a little more active, and everyone knows that the railway transportation in wartime is very important, at least in China, but India. It is also a well-known fact that the speed of the railways in China is still not much faster than that in the colonial era. The whispers of the audience gradually subsided, and Lin Huaisheng continued to speak. Okay, let's go back and talk about India's forward deployment. Lin Huaisheng closed the picture on the computer and clicked back to number 2. In the basement command room of the remote Peshawar airport, Colonel Sami was allowed to sit aside and listen to the ground personnel command the 5th Squadron to counterattack. In fact, this is not a complete command. The real control of the air combat situation is an alley that is closer to the battlefield. For the AWACS, the commander on the ground gave a positive or negative answer only when the air asked to fire. Sami sat cross-legged behind the ground commander. Commander Badra Islam was his former comrade in arms, but Islam was bald and a major general. Sami is sitting here to pass the time. Anyway, his rank is enough for him to sit here. His own counterattack will have to wait until the afternoon, when a transport plane with missiles and fuel will take him back to the base at Attock, when 26 the squadron ground crew should also have his number 101 Thunder overhauled. The Falcon reported that there were 3 MiG-21 formations taking off from Srinagar. Someone spoke on the radio, and it turned out to be Hassan's voice. Sami couldn't help but sneer. Maintain the course and approach from the side and rear. I will monitor the other direction. Someone in the early warning aircraft said. It's just a feint to test our reconnaissance. Their attack aircraft must be hiding in a corner. It must be like this. Islam took time to turn his head and said to Sami. Yes, if I were the ground commander of the Indian Air Force, it would be the same, with front-line tactical aircraft covering the attack aircraft. Where do you think the target is? The Major General asked Sami. You are asking what targets will they attack on the second day of the war? If it is the US military, it will undoubtedly be the airport and the surface-to-air missile positions. Our positions are always moving. The Major General laughed. Of course I know that. Sammy shook his head dismissively. He knows how bad Pakistan's counterattack has been since the war started. All the planes and missiles are moving aimlessly, turning around, so that the 3 Mirage fighter jets went deep into the vicinity of Yusub, and the breakthrough distance was close to 400 kilometers. The ground radar had already spotted the enemy planes, but they were unable to dispatch planes to confront them, because all the planes were flying around. Of course, objectively, Sammy also knows that this confusion also makes the Indian Air Force exhausted, and indirectly causes most of the equipment to be preserved unscathed. You also think that's why they sent the MiG-21. Maybe, they're waiting for the Army's surface-to-air missile positions to come on so they can measure the positions of those positions.